Welcome to another one of our Tuesday takeovers for racial and social justice, brought to you by REAC and our equity teams. My name is Sarah Robinson. I'm from the Redondo Beach Teachers Association, and I'm going to be one of your co-moderators tonight. We've got a great, this afternoon actually, we've got a great panel of members who are going to discuss doing anti-racist work in conservative areas of our state and some of the challenges that they have encountered or that our members might encounter, and what are some of the strategies to help us achieve those goals. But first I want to introduce my co-moderator, Carmina Ramirez.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carmina Ramirez. I'm a teacher librarian at Calexico Unified School District, and I'm also the at-large at Imperial County Teachers Service Center. I would like to take a moment to do the acknowledgement of the land. Wherever you are in California, I would like for us to think about the first people, Native people. And when we talk about land, land is part of who we are. It is a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, our future. We carry ancestors in us, and they are around us. For us here in the Imperial County, this is the land of the Kumeyaay. When we travel on Interstate 8 from the San Diego coast, across the desert of El Centro, we are traveling across the traditional trade route that our ancestors walked for more than 10,000 years. The Kumeyaay are still part of this land. Thank you. As Sarah mentioned, we are joining today our discussion on being an anti-racist educator in a conservative area is a direct response to the desire to learn, to connect, and to make a difference in our communities. Today's event reflects the feedback and suggestions from California educators who are committed to do the work of anti-racism, but may face challenges or pushback in their communities. Next, Sarah, would you introduce our extraordinary panelists?
Thank you, Carmina. So first off, I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves, tell us what area you are from, what is your position in CTA, if you have one, in your local association, and in your day work, what is your role in your school community? So let's start off with Jesse.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jesse Aguilar. I'm an art teacher, a high school art teacher at East Batesville High School in Bakersfield, currently serving on the board of directors for District H, which represents Kern County, Tulare County, Kings County, parts of northern LA County around Antelope Valley, and then up to 395 into Inyo County and Mono County.
Thank you. Eva?
Hi, I'm Eva Ruiz, and I am currently a CTA board member for District F, which covers Fresno County, Madera, Merced Mariposa, and Stanislaus County, Central Valley. I'm a TK kindergarten teacher in a dual immersion program for Fresno Unified, and I live in the great city of Fresno.
Thank you. David?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is David Cuestas. I am an 8th grade dual immersion teacher, history, language arts for the Palmdale Elementary Teacher Association. I am currently the vice chair for the High Desert Service Center Council, and I'm also currently a member of the REAC team.
Great, thank you. Judy?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Judy Gonzalez Martinez. I'm the president of our chapter in Central Unified, which is a community, a very strong, loving, and caring community of, we have approximately 17,000 students, and we are just west of Fresno Unified, just west of 99, if you're familiar with the area. This is my 8th year as president. I am a full-time release president. I spent 21 years in the classroom. I not only work in the community of Central Unified, But my students, my two children attended Central Unified, so I'm a community member, lifelong community member here, as well as my husband. He is alumni of our district. So we have a lot of roots here. And I'm very proud to say that Central Unified Teachers Association, 850 members strong. So, and thank you for including me in this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Judy. And Karen.
I don't think Karen wasn't able to be here.
Oh, okay. So Karen is off enjoying her summer. Perfect. Okay, so as Carmina said, we today wanted to dive into kind of continue the conversation we had from our first discussion about anti-racist education and the work that we're all doing, with this idea that it is kind of a journey in that people must take, and we're all kind of in different places on that journey, and that it can look very different depending where we are in California, who we work with. And so I just wanted to start off that way with the panel. And for you and your community, whether that's your school, your district, your community at large, what does anti-racist education and anti-racism look like to you? And whoever wants to jump in, you can go in any order you choose.
So I'll jump in. I think you put it right. I think it has to do with the journey, where you are in that journey in regards to your career. I do think that in the Central Valley, I think it's a little bit different than it would be in an urban area, in that the vast majority of the folks teaching or being educators are not people of color. So I think people of color who are educators tend to find themselves in the minority a lot, and I think it is difficult. I think there is definitely. I think you realize really quickly that that you need to watch kind of what you say. You need to kind of watch how you behave, because I think we're very much afflicted by these racial narratives, which are, and in some cases, people of color even take in those racial narratives and begin to believe them. But I think you become very aware of the racial narratives in areas and spaces like you would have in the Central Valley, and I think and you have to be very cognizant of it, because again, depending on where you are in your career, if you're trying to break into a leadership position, you can be stopped right away at the beginning before you get very far at all. So I think in order to do the anti-racist work you want to do within CTA, within your district, I think it requires you to get into those spaces of power. And to be able to get into those spaces of power requires a lot of maneuvering and requires a lot of navigating the landscape and being cognizant and understanding the landscape that you're navigating. So it's being an anti-racist in the Central Valley is almost subversive in a weird way, because you do got to make it, first of all, past your first 2 years of teaching, and then you got to make it into those leadership spaces. So and then once you're there, you can move forward. But it does look different in the Central Valley than it would look in Oakland or in Los Angeles, I think.
Great, thank you, Jesse.
I will concur with my brother Jesse. Definitely, the first challenge is to be part of your local, to be participatory in your local, and then itself may be a problem. But if you talk to people, if you have the conversations about what your goals are, then you may effectively be part of the leadership. And then it comes the harder part, in my opinion, in our. I guess I'm from the high desert, like I said, Palmdale, and it is trying to start changing the system, and for that you need to convince your members to be part of the process of manifesting how the system is not really working for everybody in the community, and then you have to start making the changes, and that's among the many words that our educators don't like to hear is politics. But, in my area, we managed to remove 3 board members at the same time. So it would remove a superintendent that was intending to sprinkle or area with charter schools. And in order for that to happen, you need to have all the members be part of it to remove the system, and bring on programs that benefit our members. So one of the things that in order to combat the racism is to convince members that, what you're planning, the plans are for the benefit of the communities at large, and removing the obstacles, and that more often than not, it's politics.
Thank you.
So,
Eva?
so I think starting off, though, in a conservative area, you need to also build relationships, because it's really hard to have a conversation with someone when you don't have that relationship with them, because it can get defensive really quickly, and then it can escalate into not good areas. So you have to be able to build the relationships within your communities that you're talking, whether you're talking in your school community or your local association community or your community at large. You have to build those relationships and build the trust in order to have these conversations, because they're not easy conversations. They're hard. So if you're having these conversations with people that you know that you care about, they care about you, it sometimes it makes it's not easier to have, but an easier acceptance or easier learning for people to see, because when you bring things up to your friends and they don't believe that it's happening, that doesn't happen now. No, that's illegal. You have to show them the examples. You have to open their eyes to it, and they have to be willing to listen to you in order for you to bring those issues up, and so that they can see, so you can show them how it is still happening. But you have to definitely have relationships with people, because it's not easy to listen to. And so I think building relationships in our areas is definitely something that I've done in order to maneuver my way around our area, our conservative area, our local community and school community.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes, thank you. So what does that look like? I concur with what David and Jesse and Eva said. And I'm going to add one more thing. We have to be, as leaders, as community members, as teachers, as whatever it is that you do, we have to be role models, first and foremost. And if we are the role models, and these people that we're building relationships with, as Eva said, get to know you, they begin to trust you. And so it stems from all of that. And if you're being the role models, then our children are looking to that, and they see that. We recently had a situation in our community. You may have heard of it because it went national. We had a board member that on his Facebook page posted that he wanted everyone to go back to their country, and then used an expletive and said, "I'm tired of this SH whatever." Our community rose. They came together overwhelmingly, and they were very vocal. I was so proud. It was a very, very proud moment. Obviously, we took a stance as well and said that, we were sad that those comments happened, acknowledging that everybody has First Amendment rights, right? However, what you say, your words are powerful. And this gentleman represented, we're very diverse here. We are 76% Hispanic. We have a huge Punjabi community, a huge Hmong community, a huge African American community, and we are strong together. And so to see that is what anti-racism looks like in our community right now. So very proud to say. And I hope that by being role models and by supporting each other, that other communities can learn from this. So thank you.
Thank you. And both what Judy and Eva said really touch on a lot of the feedback we got from our members when we were starting to prepare this, is that we members were asking for help, that they wanted to have those conversations that they knew could be difficult, whether it was in the staff lounge or, with other parents at the, the rec league game or whatever, but they just weren't sure how. And I think you guys have really highlighted that, just acknowledging it could be difficult, but that not deterring you from doing that work. So on that topic, what are some of the elements or programs or things that you have done in your communities that you felt really helped push that anti-racist agenda? Or on the other side, something that you tried that maybe didn't work out as well? But just what are some of the things that you maybe have done at different levels that you felt kind of really captured what was needed in your community?
Well, I'll start now. And one of the things that I work, again, going back to the politics of things, one of the goals that we have as an association was to bring a superintendent that would understand the community, that will help us, help the community. And we did. We luckily we changed the board, and then we gave names of people they think. And the whole idea was to start dual immersion programs. We had one dual immersion program in our district, but then once this particular superintendent came in, then we had more conversations, and now we are to 6 schools with dual immersion. We have 2 K campuses, and then we have branches and different schools. So that's one thing, again, because the intent is after you change the people in charge, the powerful people, then you start creating programs that would benefit the rest of the community. And like Judy mentioned, 75% of our population, it's Hispanic. So when you bring programs like dual immersion, when you enhance the migrant education on the weekends for students, that is a benefit for the students and a benefit for the community. So those are things that have worked in Palmdale in particular, in the high desert. So that would be one of the things, people that come with ideas that would benefit the students and the parents, the community as a whole.
Great example, yeah.
And I do think it's important to kind of, again, in Bakersfield, so this is Kevin McCarthy's area. It's ruby red. I do think there needs to be a pragmatism in regards to what can get done. I mean, we had issues in my district, which is the largest high school only district in the state of California, in regards to disproportionate suspensions, expulsions of students of color, right? But a huge chunk of the population in Bakersfield didn't believe it. They didn't want to believe it. They didn't want to look at the numbers. They just wanted to insist it was going to be gone. So, I mean, I think what do you categorize as a win? I think in Bakersfield we've come to this thing where we want to lose by less. So we usually when you have these ballot initiatives that come on there, it's not necessarily we're gonna win the county or win Bakersfield, but we're gonna lose by less. So but you keep pushing forward on things, and there's incremental progress that you make, and and sometimes you don't let it wear you down. And you move forward that way. I did want to go back to just talk about the relationship aspect of it, because I thought that was really important, because the whole dismantling of these racial narratives is vital, right? And the way you do that is by creating those relationships and by letting people see you as a human being with the intricacies and complexities of a human being, rather than just to see you as a skin color and all the stereotypes that go along with that skin color. So that the more often you can break down those racial narratives and build those relationships, then the better chance you have to form an alliance and be able to move an agenda. And I think that's absolutely vitally important. One of the deals, and this is an issue I had with the title of this webinar, was the whole idea of conservatism. I think it's not just conservatives who have an issue with white fragility or white supremacy, and I think by just saying using the term conservatives, you kind of put them on blast and kind of let a whole lot of liberals off the hook. And I think it's important for us to recognize that once you get into the politics aspect of it, you're once removed from the real issue, which has to do with skin color. And if you look at the racial narratives, that's all based on skin color. So, I mean, I never really had an issue becoming a leader because of conservatives. I had an issue becoming a leader because of the white spaces that I was in, and because of the assumptions they had on me, because of the racial narratives that were attached to me by society. So I think that's the real talk. I mean, the reality is that it's not necessarily, a person isn't, you know, the person can be an ally if he's a conservative or she's a conservative.
For sure.
We don't want to put them into a box, just as the same way we're not being put into a box. So I think you have to start off there. You have to start off when you're talking to people, accepting them as they are, with their political ideology intact and everything like that, and push against some of the narratives that they're trying to define you with. And I think that's incredibly important in order to be able to kind of move anywhere in this area, to get into a position of leadership, to be able to move any kind of agenda at all.
Yeah, I think that's super important, just destroying those racial narratives. And that's work that we need to do from top to bottom in our state and our country, regardless of the person's zip code or the skin color of the person you're talking to, or the person who's giving the speech themselves, that we all are in agreement to destroy those narratives. Thank you. Judy? Or Eva? I don't know who we hadn't heard from on this one.
I liked what Jesse had to say about we need to remember that we're all humans, first of all. What do we learn in kindergarten? Eva knows this. She was a kindergarten teacher. You treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's kind of what it comes down to. But all of it together, it's not about conservative. I hate those labels. I don't like them because I feel like I'm a conservative. But as Jesse said, there are liberals just as much who may be, anti-racist. And what about those people and our students, for instance, who don't even realize that what they're saying or their actions are racist? They don't even realize it, right? No one, when we are born, we're not born a racist, right? That is learned. So our job is to educate, and those are what we're doing in the Central community right now, in the Central Unified Teachers Association, is we are trying to educate, again, by being role models. Our district has implemented cultural awareness training for all staff, but not just our entire staff, not just teachers, from the cooks to our board members who must attend these trainings. They're going to be mandatory. Creating ethnic studies courses at your schools because we need to educate again. And yes, it is very, very touchy. So, if you're a teacher out there and you're wondering, how do I deal with this if I'm white, right? It's very uncomfortable for that teacher maybe. Or a brown person who has to teach a black student in their class, and maybe it's very, very sensitive to them. Well, I would say then you need to reach out to people, maybe have a one-on-one conversation with those students before you have those conversations in your classroom. Maybe have a counselor there with you to address any concerns that you might have. But more than anything, we have to educate and we have to have those conversations, because if we do not have those conversations, then we will get absolutely nowhere. So it starts by building those relationships and starting those conversations. Thank you.
So absolutely correct. I think a place of starting are panels like this, having where we can talk about what's going on, how we deal with this. Everyone who signed up who is here, it's a step. Maybe this is your first time coming and listening, and it's your first step. You may not leave with the answers, but you leave with some thought, and you leave with knowing that there is other people that are thinking the same thing you're thinking, in the same place you're at. How do I do better? How do we get better? It's a learning process. So having events like this, inviting our members to come to CTA conferences, CTA events, where we sit and we talk, this is how we start. It's step by step. and we do it together because we learn from each other and we support each other and we have each other's backs when we need to, because this is not easy. And depending on where you're at, it could be more difficult than we can ever imagine, but that's what we're here for. That's why we're having events like this. So I think this is where we start so that we can move forward.
Thank you. So you guys all kind of mentioned a little bit too, dealing with pushback in conversation. So that's a question we got from a lot of members, was how to deal with, once you've made that decision, I'm going to have this conversation, and you get pushback. Some of the, greatest hits that I've heard of when you get in that conversation, I don't see color, well, we're not racist. Like, look, we have this Black teacher over here, or like, we're not racist. We have one brown school board member, So how do you kind of continue that conversation and not let that be a roadblock for you?
I'll go. I think it's important that when you're having those conversations, that you remember that it shouldn't be a debate, that you need to be open-minded with that person, and understand that the conversation that you have with those people, you may not change their mind. So if you go in with that mindset that I'm going to change their mind no matter what, that doesn't happen overnight, and it's going to take time. So have the open mind and agree to have the conversation with the person, and just say, but also listen to what that person is saying. They have to know that you are listening to them, because if they begin to talk and you cut them off because you don't like what they're going to say, you need to be patient. You need to listen, open-minded. Do not judge them for what they're saying. Remember, and when I think of students all the time, if they say something that is racist, they don't realize that they're saying it. That could be the same thing for an adult. So don't judge, because we're asking them not to judge us, right? We're asking them not to be anti-racist. But if you go in with the mindset and you just want to tear down everything they say, you first have to be open to what they're saying. And then as you end, realize that you don't have to agree with them, and you may end the conversation and you're still not in agreement, and maybe you didn't get anywhere, but guess what? You started the conversation, and it has to start somewhere. And when you do that, that person is going to respect that you listened, that you didn't judge what they had to say, and they're going to be willing to come back and talk to you again. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, I agree with Judy completely. There's a little thing that I use. I use the pivot a lot. So, I mean, it's a great way to acknowledge what they're saying, but then pivot to where you want to go. And it's just like, look, I hear what you're saying, but have you ever thought about, and then you kind of move it along in that direction. And then you appeal to the human traits. You appeal to fairness, right? You appeal to other things that aren't so loaded. And you kind of take them down that road. And Judy's right. If at the end of the day, if you don't agree, you don't agree, and that comes up a lot. And that doesn't mean that you have to water down what you believe in, or that you have to kind of you try to find a middle ground, because oftentimes the middle ground is just as bad as the further ground. So I think it's okay to disagree. Acknowledge you disagree, and then maybe end it with a joke, and again, really the joking, the appealing to human ideas like fairness. Those are ways to kind of make it a little bit more human, and it's an interaction between human beings rather than an interaction between a white person and a brown person, or a white person and a black person. So those are little things, and yeah, you may not get them that day, but you've begun to building the relationship. And later on, it's a lot easier to push back hard on somebody that you've built a relationship with than it is to push back hard on somebody you just met, or don't go along with.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. David?
So I am not as polished and I'm at loss of words. Brother Jesse and Judy here hit it on the point. You have to be amiable and have the conversation and it, listen to them. But to my end, it's a two-way street, right? I'm going to listen to them, but they're going to listen to me too, and they have to. And there's some instances, things that happen that it's just a lot of the times us as educators, regardless of your color, we have drank the Kool-Aid. We are part of the system, and we end up doing things that is not good. Things that are not conducive to a better education for students. And sometimes there's those instances in which you have to say, wait a minute, this needs to stop. My educators need to get back on hitting the books and learn about us. I mean, I come from the one place in which four professionals pose for a picture with a noose and a smile on their face. And that to me is just plain blatant ignorance about the history of your own country. And if I know what that picture meant for this country in which I wasn't born, how come they didn't? How come this? So we come to those places. Yes, I do agree. You have to have the conversations. Yes, I'm going to listen to them. But to a point, I'm going to step on the accelerator and say, wait a minute. There are certain things that we need to go back and visit and find out how we're teaching these kids. I mean, you may have the greatest intentions in the world, but your ignorance about certain things is detrimental to your students. And again, and it's just a fact. In my life, it's a fact that happened. And my job was to go and try to be the best president for those members and get them the best help that they can get. But at the same time, it was, wait a minute, how come this happened? Why is this happening? And just like that instance, there are probably many more. So there's to a point that we need to start putting the onus on them and say, wait a minute, there are things that must be done. We need to relearn things. There are things that need to be happening in the classrooms that you may not be aware of, but then, we need to find out. In this age of technology, we can relearn many, many things.
And I think that's a great point too, David, that crosses, all of the borders and boundaries of whether we're in, whatever city or small town or, whatever the population of the city is. The one thing we can all control is our ability to educate ourselves on these issues, right? And to really find what elements of anti-racist work speak to us, what are the challenges we've encountered, and what are the ways that we ourselves have been racist, right? That's, I think, the most important part before you can go out and work in your community and talk to your school board and do all that stuff. You have to reckon with that yourself. And that's something we can do, whether you're liberal, conservative, white, black, brown, in a rural area, urban, whatever.
If I may interrupt and say again, one of the things that the whole concept of where we're living in this time says, I'm a Hispanic, a proud Hispanic, but I know that my family, I'm going to talk about my family. I have members in my family that are racist, and that's a problem to me personally, because it's people that I love, people that I need to force to have a conversation with, people that I no longer talk to them anymore. So it's not anti-racist doesn't mean that we're focusing on one color in particular. It's just a population. It's like you just mentioned, it's everybody. We all have something that we need to work on and be educated more.
Right. Well, all of us are working in the system of public education. So all of us, are participating in that racist system. Ella, we haven't heard from you in a bit. Something that you'd like to share?
Well, I think also within ourselves, when we get into these conversations, we also have to recognize how far we're willing to go in ourselves. So, David talked about giving, no, we have to have these conversations, but you have to recognize in yourself how far you're willing to go also in these conversations with people who may not be listening, may not be agreeing, or come back with things that make you angry. So within yourself, you also have to recognize, like, how far do I want to take this conversation with this person, because this person might not be where they need to be in order to listen to to now my response back or our conversation back and forth. So sometimes we have to look within ourselves and recognize the environment or the conversation or who we're talking to, and recognize when we need to cut it off, kind of to save maybe that relationship that could get severed if it goes too far, in order to continue to have those conversations with groups of people or certain people. So I think it's important to know when you push and when you don't, and when you let them absorb in what you've just talked about. So I think that's important also, is recognizing in ourselves how far to go also.
Great, thank you.
Just off of that point, I also wanted to stress the importance of building political power and political capital. Because if you're a person of color and there's not a lot of people of color at your school site or in your district, you're at a big disadvantage. But we talked about relationship building. You have relational power. How do you translate relational power into political power? And I think that is the trick. Because like David was saying, how you push back, wanting to push back. If you try to push back as a first and second year teacher with no power at all, then you could be cut off right there, and you're done, and you're not getting anywhere. No agenda's being moved. So you got to be cognizant of building those relationships at your school site. Once you've got that, then you can translate that into political power. I mean, one of the reasons I got to where I am is because I had a school site that I got to vote about at 80%. Every other school site was voting at about 40%. So that as long as my school site voted at 80%, I could be sure that I was going to win any election that I went into, because I was sitting on top of that political power. And that allowed me to get into places of influence. And in those places of influence, I could push a lot harder and do a lot more things than the first or second year teacher with no power at all could do. And it also insulates you a bit. You can push hard on the district, you can push hard at the board, you can push hard on your own leadership, because you have that political power. That is so incredibly important to have. And I do say, if you're a person of color in an area that does not have a lot of diversity, and you do reach those places, then it's up to you to make sure you help other people come up. It's up to you to push on policies that make everything much more equitable and make more opportunity more available to more of your colleagues of color. So in those positions, you have a responsibility to be able to kind of push, because you are insulated better than a lot of other folks are insulated.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to open this up to Carmina, who has been monitoring our Q&A, to bring forth some questions from some of our participants.
Thank you. All of you mentioned the importance of being an anti-racist by calling things out, by speaking out, by taking action. So one of the questions that, and it's not just one time question, but several times we've seen this question come up: how do we protect anti-racist educators from retaliation?
Well, this is if I may jump in here. This is when the strength of your local has to, what's the leadership in your local, is very important, and that's the best way. That is the best way. That's the protection for any teacher and every teacher. I don't care if you're the first year teacher or 25 years in. I'm always adhere to the don't ask for permission, just be ready to get the punishment, right? I mean, you did it, and then we're going to discuss about it. But then you have to have the cognizance that your local is behind you. I have no doubt about CTA whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure that all our members don't have doubts about CTA. Well, some might. But when it comes to a particular locals, then it goes like Jesse mentioned, right? So who is in power in that local? Who is leading? Because your president may advocate for you, may go to the fence with you, or may not. So that is something that, it just the whole thing comes back to what everybody's saying, you know, about the relationships, you know, how those members in power get to the power, you know, who puts them there, and what are their goals.
I'll add to that. I agree with you, David. If that's happening to you, that's the first question usually. If someone comes and says something, and I'll say, well, can I bring this up? And you can, but don't use my name, right? And I'm like, well, why? Well, they're fearful of retaliation. So what I normally tell them is, well, number one, if you're bringing something up and you are retaliated against, then it's going to be obvious that they're retaliating. So you're actually more protected if you do say something. If you don't say something, we have professional standards, number one, that need to be followed. There's board policy as well that needs to be followed. And your exec board, me as president, I hear about those things, and we will protect those people from being retaliated against. But we have to know about it first, right? So please make sure that you are reaching out to whoever is your president or on your exec board. Again, your superintendent needs to know about it as well. I have monthly meetings with our superintendents, and we make them aware of those things that are happening. And we make it very clear there will be no retaliation. But your members, first of all, have to trust you, as you said. And if they don't, then there's CTA is there for you, NEA is there for you. And I don't know. Like I said, there shouldn't be any fear for retaliation. That's what I want to say. I know it's used a lot, but people need to kind of say, no, they've got our back, and we do. We have their back. So if I had a specific question about retaliation and had to deal with it, it probably might be easier because that's kind of a broad overview, but it is a fear among many members. I can't tell you how many times I hear that word within a year. So you just have to let them know that you are there for them.
You know, I'll ask that. I agree that good contract language is golden, but there are times where, you know, the politics of the moment kind of, especially on issues of systemic racism and inequity, there are times where, you may have to go outside of the actual, your local structure. And look at this community organizations out there that are fighting for equity and social justice and racial justice. They're out there. Here in Bakersfield, we have the Dolores Huerta Foundation, right? So, we had an issue where our board was trying to arm our teachers. I think, and they got the idea from someone in Neva's area, from a local Neva's area. So they were trying to arm our teachers. We polled our members, and our members were 50-50 on arming our teachers. So, politically for the local association, it was a difficult place to go, but it wasn't a difficult call for the Dolores Huerta Foundation and the education group that they were pushing. So, sometimes you can go outside of your local structure, and you don't always have to lead. I think that we supported the work that the Dolores Huerta Foundation was doing on that issue. And we were kind of in the background. I was attending the meetings and everything. I was giving them information. They were giving me information. And they were taking point on that, and they were pushing against all that. So sometimes it's okay to go outside of your local on those issues where the local is not going to act because it doesn't see it in its best interest to do so. And you do have groups out there that are there, and it makes sense to build relationships with those kind of groups as well, because those groups may share your beliefs in regards to education, equity, access to education, and they don't have an issue taking point on that, and you can play a supportive role in that as well.
So everything that my colleagues have said is spot on, is absolutely correct. And another way to arm yourself when this is taking place is to know your contract and know your rights, and consider getting involved in your local, because knowledge is power. The more you know about your rights as an educator in a school district and school policy, it's less likely that somebody can push you around or bully you or have this this overarching power over you, and you have the fear of retaliation. So I think arming yourself with knowing your contract, knowing the school policy, and getting involved, learning by attending our NEA, our CTA, even local events that have to do with being an anti-racist teacher, social justice. You get to build again relationships with different people and different connections, different organizations, not only just your local, but other community organizations. You get to meet other people that can help you. If you can't find it in your local, then you can go outside your local. So it's about learning also.
If I may go at it again, it's something that I need to get off my chest too, because I'm old enough to be like, the first step is, you work on your local, you make sure that your local function, you make sure that you have a solid contract, and then you work on parity with the district, right? The district is not better than your local association. Your superintendent is not more than your president. And once you have that, the third step, it's what we're talking about. It's, okay, so how the social justice comes into play here. And that means the community. And that's the connection that Jesse just brought about with the Dolores Huerta Foundation, right? So our members, our local association, number one, but our particular members too. And this goes back to the question, how do we protect the teachers in the classroom? Well, if we are part of LULAC, if we are part of the ACLU, if we are part of all the minority organizations in your area, well, that is the protection. That's not necessarily just the local association, but those are the things that a lot of our members don't wish to do. And that, at least I'm talking my experience, that is the hard ask. That's the one thing that makes our teachers uncomfortable, in my experience. We have a 75% confidence from our communities as teachers when what we say is going to happen. But when I used to ask my teachers to walk up to the sidewalk and greet the parents and have a conversation with the parent, that was a hard ask. I knew that was not going to happen necessarily at all the campuses of the 25 that were part of our district, because that's the one thing that many of our educators are resilient to do. And the moment when we figure out that that's the best way to succeed, that's the best way that Prop 15 is going to pass. If we have teachers coming out, well, now it's video, right? But if we were back on the used to be, those are the things that drive the communities, because they already trust us. But if we come out and talk to them and build the relationship with those parents, that it's golden. There's nothing that supersedes that. I don't care what the superintendent may want. When you have those parents with you, you're gonna succeed. You're gonna remove anything that is a barrier for anybody and everybody.
I also say, so David comes from the place where they had the noose. The teachers took a picture with the noose that they found, and it went viral on social media. So I after that happened, the Black community in the area was really upset. I mean, they did make the fact that they were so upset known to the district. And I think that pressure caused just at least a little change in regards to how the district was moving on that. They definitely didn't see it as not a big deal anymore. So that changed. So the power of the community, filling a board meeting, it is incredibly powerful. We had an issue where one of our board wanted to ban the book The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, because they said it was filthy and it was pornography, and they had never read it. But we were able, and as a local association, and so I think that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of my local, is we did organize around that, and we did fill that boardroom with educators. I mean, there was like 2 overflow rooms, but we were in the main room because we were able to get there right after school. And that pressure, when those board members walked in and looked at that group of people, you can see them get incredibly nervous when they went up to speak. That you can hear their voices shake, And we were able to get a good outcome out of that because we were able to fill up that boardroom, and the community had such a backlash against what it was they were trying to do. So finding those allies, whether it be within the district, whether it be within your local, whether it be in the community, is vitally important to the work we do. If the work we do is trying to deconstruct or take apart and dismantle these racial narratives and become more of an anti-racist society.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of the questions are asking from an individual point of view, and what you're offering us is unity and empowerment by working together, building relationships. So there's questions about, what if I'm bullied by like online parents, or what if I'm being accused of being biased? So I feel that you have answered that by your comments right now, and I actually would like to ask the question, because I'm so inspired by Jesse's response. What other proud moments can you recall and share with us where you have seen community come together and change the narrative that we are trying to fight as an anti-racist educator?
Well, I think I already shared in our community what was the last thing that happened with a board member. As Jesse said, the picture of the members with the noose. Ours was it was a board member who actually made the racist comments, and like I said, it was overwhelming. There wasn't even a whole lot that we had to do. We made a statement immediately on social media. Our district actually came together and they did a resolution denouncing what he said. They put in the resolution his name and also what he said, which was powerful. And like I said, and Jesse was right, talk about your other organizations that you have. But we had BAPAC and AME, a Mexican American Club, and a Black American Club here locally, that were very influential in getting people to come to our board meeting. It was all virtual, however, right? So we haven't packed a board meeting in a while, but had we had the meeting in an open forum, that board meeting would have been packed, I assure you, with the number of calls that we received and texts and emails, and it was just community sticking together, and they knew that how we felt because we had put a statement out on social media saying that it wasn't okay. So it was powerful for us.
So in the Fresno area, we currently actually have a seven school board member board in Fresno Unified, and 5 out of the 7, 5 of our school board members are people of color. They're minorities. We have 1 Caucasian, actually 2 Caucasian, but we have 6 women on our board. So this is pretty good to have some racial diversity on a school board. But we have 1 school board member who likes to put out racist comments, likes to put their hands on students and kind of rough them up. So we've been, in this community, have been fighting back on that 1 school board member, and the other school board members on the school board have been having to deal with this, and it's been tough because the area that he lives in, he has support. He has some pretty big money support behind him, and some of the things that he has done, you go, oh my goodness, he put his hands on a student when he was on campus. He threatened cheerleaders on campus because of things that had happened. So there's still some of our communities that are I mean, we're dealing with it, and they haven't big wins, but more and more people are coming together and saying, this is not right, this cannot happen, this cannot be, and elections matter, and who you pick to be on these school boards matter, because they affect the lives of our students from preschool all the way to 12th grade. They affect their lives. So I think sometimes we don't always see the win, and sometimes it's hard because it feels so defeating, but we keep going at it, and we keep together with our community groups that we build relationships with, because those are so important, to build relationships with the community groups and our parents, to move forward and say, this is not right, this is not how this should be, this is not how people who are making decisions for our children's lives should be behaving. So sometimes we don't always get the win when we want the win, but we keep going at it. And so we just have to help each other and be strong and continue the good fight.
You know, when this morning I was attending our Excellent Summer Institute and the social media strategies, and you know, with all those guys there, one of the advice was, you know, hey, you should be friends with the board members, you know, with the superintendent that happens to be in Facebook, because, you know, we always need a foil, right? And when these people, like the examples that you heard before, start doing stuff that is detrimental to our community, then you have something. And you don't have to be the president of a local. You just a regular teacher on Facebook, but find, you know, comments and pictures that are attacking your community, then you can start something, right? It's always about organizing any which way. But I think we talk about, you know, about the union and the politics, but as a former immigrant student that was in a classroom since 10th grade all the way through college, that saw but one person of color teaching me, that's the one thing. The one thing, you know, I don't know how much in trouble you can get when you learn about the students of color in front of you and you try to bring something that makes them feel like they're part of the society. You know, when I was going through school, I was longing for my country, and I was waiting for somebody to tell me that they knew something about the place that I came from so I could connect with that person. And there were far and few between. But that in itself, you know, how do we combat, you know, racism? Well, we acknowledge the people sitting in front of us. We need to have that connection. We talk about having the relationship with adults, with, you know, local members, union members. Well, first and foremost is the connection with those 30+ students in front of you. You know, just now go farther than, you know, what's your mom's name, but where are they coming from? What are they about? You know, that's the one thing. How do we combat racism is that we create relationship with our students. You know, some of us are willing to go to a quinceañera because that's who we are, you know, not show up and, you know, get invited. Why not? Yeah, it's a party, right? And others may not. But the point that the students feel, you know, that you listen to them. Just we're asking throughout this whole hour to listen to other people. Well, we need to listen to our students. You know, first and foremost, we need to listen to our students and give them a platform, give them. But they, you know, you here in the States say, you know, the 15 minutes of fame. Well, your students should get at least 2 minutes of fame every single day, you know, throughout the whole year.
You know, and I'll add and fight for your students too, because one of the big things that characterizes Central Valley is that you look at our student population, it's a lot browner and blacker than our teaching population. So, and I think as a person of color in the classroom with a whole group of people of color, I think it's who do not have the power that you have. Because after your first 2 years, I think teachers need to realize after the first 2 years, you're pretty golden. You can go to a board meeting and push back. You can do a lot of stuff and push back, and you're not going to get hurt by that. Maybe you'll get a crappy assignment, but you know that's probably the worst of it. But you can push back, and I would hope that more teachers begin to understand that as people who have gained permanency, they've gained an opportunity to use the platform that they have as a teacher of students of color to push back on policies that are bad for those students of color, and move forward and try to implement learning conditions that are going to make teaching a much better deal for those students of color. So I think the onus is on teachers And really, the onus is on all teachers, not just teachers of color. The onus is on all teachers to fight for their students, especially when those students have no one else to fight for them. So that would be, my last push in regards to, use that platform. Being a teacher is a big deal. People will listen to you, and you can use that to do better.
I think that's great, Jesse. That's actually really close. We had a question I thought was great from the chat we didn't get to, that was about what can an educator who holds white privilege do to participate in anti-racist education and to bring down those racist policies and practices in their district. And I think you said it just right there, because we hold privilege as educators, right, in our communities. So while we may not hold white privilege, those of us on this panel, we do hold that privilege. But I think that works as well, is that you need, like you said, stand up with your students and for your students and speak with them. You're not speaking for them, because you might not have that experience if you hold white privilege, but you can 100%, no matter where you are, speak with those students for whatever their issue is. Carmina, back to you.
Well, I think we have reached the end of our panel time. And so thank you so much to everyone. There's a lot here, and this is going to be recorded so we can come back and listen to everything that you share with us. So thank you so much one more time. Thank you.
Thank you so much again to our panelists, Jesse, Eva, David, and Judy, and thank you to everyone out there in your homes or wherever you're watching this for joining us. And just continue the work and continue your anti-racist journey wherever it takes you in our state. It's important work that all of us as an organization are committed to doing. So thank you for joining us, and be well, everyone.